Onegaishimasu. Okay, and let's start with just a couple minutes of Zazen. So feel free to sit in a different way if you need to. And giving the mind a purpose, focus on the posture and the breathing. That's to get our mind out of the rest of the day, to get out of the monkey mind. Again, focusing on the posture and the breath. And once the mind gets settled, it becomes more and more spacious in its awareness, aware of the outside and the inside more and more equally. But to start with, we tune inward, adjust, optimize alignment of the body, basically skeletal structure that's tall and open, letting the weight settle underside, breathing settles into the abdomen. And as the mind gets anchored and settled, we can let it become more and more and more spacious. So we're equally aware eventually of inside and outside. An open window of awareness as we settle into the body. And resting the hands in the lap. And we'll start our warm up from here. Rolling the shoulders, starting together. So shoulders come back, up, forward and down. And you can allow that to bring the torso forward and back. So we get some movement in the hips and lower back as well. And nice big in breath coming up, out breath coming down with the shoulders. And rolling back the other way, up and then back, down and forward. Noticing the joints that we're articulating and addressing. And then alternating the shoulder rolls gets a little different action going in the spine. Feel the shoulder blades slide. And other way. And letting the shoulder settle down, and then chin towards the chest, and then pointing the chin up to the ceiling. Noticing the vertebrae of the neck. And back to even and straight, gentle turn. And gently ear the shoulder, and just letting gravity take the head as far down as is natural. Releasing the abdomen. And rolling the head in front. Good. And we can do some torso circles using the ground for support. Just roll the torso in a circle and then back the other way. Okay. And to the back corner. And then equal stretch through both arms. Your mind goes equally through both arms. Let that lengthen the spine as well. That growing awareness, expanding awareness. You sink into the ground as well as stretch the spine up, out through the arms. And then a little turn. And then shaking the hands as we turn. And then swinging forward and up. And then shaking through the hand blades and 3 drops. Breathing in through the nose, breathing out through the mouth for the drops. Letting that rock through the entire body, letting that rocking motion relax the body even further, relaxing and integrating the body, shaking out those tensions. And then Minuchi to the corners, from the hips, not so much leaning from the upper body. Upper body will incline, but it's because it's angling at the hips. Energy out through the hand blades. Okay. Then coming to here, if that works for you. Pushing the knees out with the elbows. And wrist exercises, Aikido. If this doesn't work for you, you can just do a horse dance. Other side. Go to gash. Another angle of Kotegaeshi I like to work is not just coming down and turning, but going forward. So that's another option. And then more pushing there. And then coming up on the balls of the feet, and you can work your balance. If that doesn't work for you, you can just either sit or be in a horse dance. Ikkyo. Sankyo. So these wrist exercises, you want to make sure you do them on a regular, almost daily basis. Otherwise, carpal tunnel sets in. Of course, just regular stiffness and restriction of mobility will set in normally, but worse things like carpal tunnel will set in if you're not continually addressing these joints and fascia and tendons and ligaments. And rolling the elbows. Okay, and then sitting, a little bit of stretching. Rolling the hip joints by rolling the torso in a circle. And across. Good, okay. Recovering center line. Check behind you, make sure there's space for your head as you roll back. Again, we're gonna tuck our chin. So everyone's familiar with this. So basic roll back. And we'll start with, we have the option of switching or staying the same. So we'll start with staying the same. And one of the things we want to work on is unifying the body intentionally and energetically. So we know that we want to tuck our chin to protect the head and also to round the back. But we can go further with that. As our awareness deepens and refines, We're not just mechanically, physically doing these things. We're holistically, energetically working the entire body. So for example, when I do this, I intend and I feel my body is one ball, one unit, one energetic ball. So when I go back, I'm not just tucking my chin mechanically. This becomes one feeling, one ball. So it's like my feet and my head are one. So like the yin yang symbol, it's just one ball. So this is all connected. So keeping it very simple by not even changing right now, you can work on that intention, that energetic. So when you go back, connect so that you're literally like this human ball, and there aren't pieces. It's not your head up here and your feet down there. It's not your upper body and lower body, and you're contracting muscularly to keep yourself together. You are this unified piece. So try a few, and so we'll go with the count. Let's see if you can feel as if you're just one piece, one ball. Each. Eat. San. Shi. Oh. Now let's switch to the other side. So before you go back, you're already one ball. Physically, energetically, you're a ball. Before you go back. Each. Eat. San. Shi. Oh. Okay. So that helps with just regular ukemi in general. When you're doing rolls, front rolls, back rolls, or when you're thrown into, whether it's a roll or a break fall, you energize yourself into one piece. That informs your body, tells and makes your body, it tells your body what form to make, what shape to make. So rather than mechanically going, I gotta do this, around my back, when you intend to energetically make that one piece, one unit, one ball, that makes the body do what it needs to do.
Sensei, can I ask, so if you're one ball, how does the ball start rolling without a piece breaking off?
How do you start?
Yeah. Like, because I noticed that the little bit of push, often from the foot means the foot's no longer on the ball.
Okay, so that's really good awareness for one thing. So what that means perhaps is that, and this is great, you noticed that a time where you weren't one complete ball. Whether it's because physically you saw a movement, or even better, it'd be energetically, you felt, well, that was separate. So that's great in and of itself. That will lead you into be able to get it back quickly and eventually keep it all the time. If you can sense, oh, that broke away from that energetic hole, that wasn't an energy sphere, that broke apart away from it, then it's only a matter of a little bit of time before you will intuitively, organically be able to correct it and prevent that from happening, because you're starting to work on a level of intention and level of the neuronal level and being ahead of the movement that you're going to do instead of correcting it after the fact.
Well, and to be more practically speaking, so the ball shouldn't be pushed from my foot. Then if that means it, like I find another way to get the ball going, because it's easier, like that happened most when the ball stopped.
Okay, so that's very interesting. So it leads to an interesting answer. When you're the ball, you can push off from any part of the sphere. So it doesn't matter if you push off from the ball, or even, this is where, this touches upon this, this touches upon this reality that once you have the understanding, once you have the ability, a level of mastery over something, it can change and look very different than the basic. Like this ongoing message that we often say is, all the basics we work on, eventually you don't have to look like those basics. You become free, but you have all the basics inside. So then you can look totally different. So not only can I push off from my foot and not have that lose the energetic, that any part of my circle can push off, to even go even further into this direction of eventually you have this freedom of doing anything and can look any way and not losing the integrity. And if you do lose it, you're able to really recognize it and get it back very quickly. So if I really have a sense of this, I can even send myself back by throwing my head back. I can even source it from here, way out here, throw my head back and still keep the energetic circle. So then it doesn't matter. A person might go, oh, he's doing not good ukami. He's throwing his head back and he's doing something that he just said we're not supposed to do. When you have it integrated energetically deeper, you can keep it regardless of shape. But that's not basic. Basic, of course, is physically, tell everybody, tuck their chin, put their head on their chest, so your back is round. And of course, we're doing everything very physically, mechanically. But there's an energetic essence to everything. And once you have the energetic essence and the internal feeling quality of it, you have it, you can carry that into anything you do, any shape you do, any speed you do. So I can push off with my foot. So I intend the sphere, I intend the connection. And I can push off. And first of all, it'll tend to have less of a separation when I go back. It'll tend to make a shorter, sharper push. And I stay in what seems to be a ball rather than losing that, getting that separation from the sphere. It'll tend to create that at first. So instead of me pushing off like this and losing that sphere, and then I bring it back in, it'll tend to make it more of an integrated sphere with less of a disintegrated push. It'll tend to correct things naturally. But once you have that inside again, it doesn't matter. I can do it what seems to be very much of an extension, but still have the organization energetically. That's why I can even throw the head back and still have it. I can throw the head back and still be a sphere. So everything becomes internally referenced, internally created, internally orchestrated and intended. That's a bit down the road, but so I'll come back to a simple general answer. If you intend anything very strongly, in this case, being round, being spherical, if you intend it clearly, it'll tend to make less of a disintegrated shape. And then with time, you start to notice more and more when you leave that intention, leave that shape, leave that integration, you'll tend to notice it sharper and sharper on a smaller and smaller level. So eventually the energetic becomes the primary thing you're working with and from. Any comments or questions about that? Because of course, this doesn't relate to just these roles. It's everything. Minucci, technique, again. So the technique eventually doesn't look like technique on a basic level. You can do it from anywhere, from any shape, without the big macro basic shape. So work with that just a bit. So working mind, working intention, working inner feeling, inner quality. And eventually, maybe today, maybe not today, you notice if you're really clear and really sharp with your intention and working the quality of the feeling in and around your body, it makes your body do what you want without your body trying to do it. It becomes effortless in that sense, but there's a lot of effort intentionally. Mind is really, really working. And that's what internal martial arts are about. It's the level of mind, level of intention. In fact, internal martial arts are often called intentional arts. Intentional arts. And that sounds kind of interesting and neat, but there's an incredible, never-ending depth to that word intentional. So another example of very basic mechanical way, I talked about chin tuck around the back. Here's another thing we often say, look at your belly button and keep looking at your belly button. So of course, that's on a very physical level to get people started. You want to get a sense of, again, deeper energy feeling that's causes that and creates that. Now, let's move into a slightly different variation of this. And there's a very physical component, which I'll explain. But since we're talking on this level, stay open to the idea and feeling of the energetic that's behind it. And then you go directly to the energetic or intentional to create the movement and the shape eventually. So we'll stay with this basic movement. Everything stays the same shape. We're going to add a little bit more movement with the arms, but we're not trying to move the arms more. We're just going to bring in the idea, the feeling, the intention of doing a showman strike. Even better, a showman strike with a sword, with a live blade, in the sense that it's very, very, very sharp. So, in fact, even just from here, just do a few shomanuchi. If you haven't worked with a sword at all, you can just do empty hand shomanuchi like we have in basic program. But notice I'm moving both arms, or actually both hand blades. Hand blade, tegatana. The ridge and the edge of the forearm, right to the edge of the hand, very sharp. So just do that action first. So whatever leg is forward is the forward arm, leg that's back is the back arm. And straight up and down center line. So if I face the camera here, you see that my hand blade fingertips are right towards center line. Shoulders stay down. Elbows are rolling forward, so not coming in. So really good showman, really good showman. And then if you have some experience, at least with bokken, imagine you're doing a big sharp cut with bokken. So that will add to the idea of sending the energy out. As you know, with sword or bokken, you send the energy out through the tip, way out through the tip. So that's through the tips of your fingers, through your hand blades, through the tips of your fingers. And that's going to, for this situation, you can allow that to bring you forward a little bit from the hips. Not from the upper body, not from the shoulders, but from the hips. So that intentional pulling forward is good. Get a little extra stretch here in the hips. And we're expressing that, allowing the body to express that big intention, strong intention. So shomanuchi. Try a few where it actually brings you forward from the hips. Big cut, like you're cutting through the wall. Again, just with a katana or bokken, you send the energy out through the tip. Okay, now switch to the other side and just do a few here. And physically, just sending the energy out through your tips should be enough to bring you forward. Just a strong, sharp projection out through the hand blades and tips, that will bring you forward. But you want to have the instigation of that is from your intention. And keep your intention flowing at the end of that. That'll tend to keep you forward. That's the power of the intention. There's a weight to our mind. There's a weight to our attention. You throw your mind forward, there's a weight to that, a momentum to that. Let that work through your body. Okay? Now, we're going to do that with this basic rollback. And we're going to use that raising and extending forward. Physically, you'll notice that will really tend to pull you up, project you forward. But you want it all coming from intention or mind. So if I demonstrate a couple, so we're not changing anything yet. Position stays the same. When I come back, you'll see at some point my arms come back a little bit towards my forehead and then extending out through the fingertips. Okay, so let's do a few together. Each, eat, cheat, rope, rope. Okay, now let's simply do the other side. Take a moment to make sure you have a clean, sharp center line, physically and energetically. So for example, this would not be a clean sense of center line, both feet and hands. This would not be a clean sense of center line. So again, this is actually a really good simple example. If I have a clean, sharp, intentional center line, they'll tend to clean up my physical alignment. If I have a blurry, unclean, unsharp sense of center line, it's obtuse. That's reflective. If I have a very, very, very finely sharp center line, energetically, intentionally, feeling-wise, they'll tend to mold the body, clean up the body shape. The mind leads the body. One of the most basic principles in internal arts, mind leads the body. But of course, for that to really start to happen, the mind has to get sharper, stronger, sharper, clearer, and the body has to be cultivated to be softer, more relaxed, more open. So that's why we spend so much time developing the Aikido body. Open up the body, open up the joints, release the muscles, relax, open and release. So the body becomes a better servant for the mind. So the body becomes a better vessel for the spirit. So it's two aspects: developing, clarifying the mind, sharpening, strengthening the mind, and cultivating the body, softening and opening up the body. Two aspects. Okay, so very clear, sharp, refined, mental or energetic center line. Okay, here we go. So you're going to then apply that cut into it. Each. Ni. San. Shi. Wo. Rope. So I'll have you do just a minute or so on your own, and just to see if you can have a sense of bringing some of this together. And what's most important, eventually, energetically, to use other words that kind of approach it, mentally, feeling-wise, intentionally, energetically, create the sphere, your one piece, as opposed to, again, most people have their upper body separate from the lower body, and certainly their arms separate from the lower body. So everything is kind of separate, segmented. Feeling-wise, energetically, intentionally, you're one sphere, one ball, one piece. It's actually helpful. It's one of the main reasons why we say sync the mind to the hata, or the tanden. You want to develop a sense that your mind isn't here. Because if I say that your mind is here, maybe you can kind of relate to not the possibility, definitely will tend to be top heavy. We'll be up here. Our center of gravity of the mind, the mental center of gravity, will be very high. We want our mental center of gravity to be centered. We want our intentional center of gravity, our source of our intention, to be coming from our core, our center. If our mental center of gravity is high, we're disjointed, everything's high. We want our mental center of gravity here. And that's where the sphere comes from the center. The sphere has a continuous center. If I'm coming from here, I can't make a true equal sphere. So try a few where you're energetically, intentionally staying as a sphere, even while you are more actively using hands, arms, hand blades. Hand blades are actively raising, cutting, raising, extending, and trying to have everything in a feeling of unity, oneness, one shape. Let's try a few of those. So this is a practice of unity, connection, intentional understanding, syncing the mind and body together. Okay, now we'll just add the changing. So as I go back, just before I come forward, I switch hands and feet. I maintain the sharp center line. I just switch the hands and feet the other way. Try to keep that same feeling of unity, sphericalness, and sharp hand blades where the big shomanuchi, energy out through the tip of the sword, helps propel you forward physically. Now that means you can be changing your hands on the bokken, right? So if I do a few to the camera here, each time I switch. Okay, let's try a few. Each, ni, san, chi, o, rope. We'll try a few on your own. Try to bring all this together, the mental, the intentional, the feeling, and the physical. But mind leads the body. So what's most important is your intention and your feeling. Let me know if you have any questions or comments.
So I noticed, Sensei, that to answer my own question, the ball never really stops moving.
Yeah.
Even if the body's still.
It's very dynamic. That's the dynamism of energy. It's always moving. And it's like a spinning top. The more refined it is, the more you're flowing energetically, more stable you are. So it's a very active extension of energy, extension of intention, or movement of energy, and that stabilizes you. Just like a fast spinning top is more stable. So it's very dynamic, very energetic. It's always moving. Okay, let's take this a little step further. This idea of unity, whole connection, one piece. And we could use the feeling of spherical. Let's do exactly what we're doing from standing, kneeling down into the movement, because that's where we're going to have a lot of things break apart, potentially, right? So, for example, I'm going to step back, kneel down, do a roll back, and come back up. So what's going to tend to happen, notice where the segments start to happen, you get disintegrated. So I'm going to start in a good unified Hami no Kamae, which means all the things that we just talked about. Sink the mind into the center. That helps bring the mind and body together, instead of the mind being somewhere here and the body being somewhere down here. I sink the mind into the tanden or the hara. The 1 point is sometimes called the 1 point. It's about 3 inches below the navel. That settles me. If weight underside helps, do that. But that brings you to here. I flow out. So in a sense, I'm one sphere. We talked about being equal back and all sides. That makes you one sphere. I'm not going to emphasize that today. If you have just a strong forward flow, that's a good start. That's a good, if I have a strong forward flow, that tends to unify me this way. And maybe I don't have all the directions, for example, going back yet. That's fine. That will tend to happen more and more so. But at least I have this coming together like a triangle, like an arrow. An arrow is more dynamic, or the imagery of an arrow, the idea of an arrow gives that sense of dynamism. That's my Hami no Kamae forwardness. Of course, that comes ultimately, the seed of that ultimately is your intention and your feeling. So I'm going to start with that. But what will tend to happen, right? Immediately there's a disintegration. My head is back a little bit. My weight fell back behind me a little bit. And I start to pull my shoulders up as I go into this back roll. I'm trying to make it quite obvious, right? So all this is pulled apart, right? And then I kind of hike myself forward. use my neck muscles to bring my head forward, pull up away from the ground, and wobble on the way up. Now I tried to make every possible mistake I could on the way down and the way up. So if you try a few of these, you'll notice some of the obvious breaking away from center line, breaking away from verticality, breaking away pieces of your body from your core. The head leaves, upper body leaves lower body. You'll notice those things. See if you can correct them by energetically feeling as a sphere, or simply energetically focusing forward, flowing forward. But you will discover that the intentional and the energetic work will create a better physicality, will correct the physicality, and make things smoother and rounder and more flowing. So this is something you'll need to do on your own time. I won't count it. So this time, so again, very quickly, start good. And I'm going to, for illustrative purposes, so I'm already feeling a break. To get a little bit subtle, I'll tell you, it probably wasn't very obvious, but when I came down, not all of me came down. My lower body went down, and he's going down, but my upper body is still kind of resisting going down. In other words, shoulders come up a little bit. That's a disintegration, no longer whole, no longer one piece. Try to notice all the things that you can that are breaking apart. And the most simple, basic level of this is have a strong forward flow. We're always talking about irimi, intentional flow forward. That's how you start. If you have a bit more experience, do the same spherical integration we had on the ground with the rollbacks. And so now, and notice when and if you lose that. So that was me being a little bit more energetically integrated. So I'm the same at every point. We're getting more and more so to that direction. So try a few. Take your time. Start with a good Hami no Kamai, really good forward flow, good balance, Hami no Kamai, so you can notice the difference when you break away from that integrity, physically and energetically, break away from that integration. It'll be more obvious when you break away from that. So try a few.
So how do you get back up?
Strong forward intention. Throw your mind forward. Your attention has weight to it. Throw your intention forward. Throw your hand forward. And try to come from below the navel. Come from below the navel, but throw your mind and your hands forward. Okay, that's good for now. Now, walk and change your direction. Send your mind first. Let your body follow. Walk and